This man was a menace during the Civil War. Bob Evans, also known as the Hat Man, lived in the foothills of Kentucky during the 1800s. With no wife or kids, he lived alone as a farmer to make ends meet. In the year 1864, many battles took place near his farm, and many soldiers would trespass onto his property and destroy his crops while passing through. This angered Bob so much to the point that he decided to take matters into his own hands. One day, a group of soldiers led by their captain would walk onto the property despite a large no trespassing sign. When all of a sudden a pickaxe flying through the air would strike the captain, taking his life in an instant. The group of men would quickly run back to the entrance of the property, but it was too late. The Hat Man was already blocking the entrance, telling the men in a sinister tone, "Can't y'all read the sign? It says no trespassing." The group of men would never be seen again. As the months went by, many soldiers would go missing around the area of the farm. At this point, the Hat Man had become a legend, as he did not discriminate. Soldiers from both sides of the war fell victim to the Hat Man. By the time the war was over, it was speculated that around 200 people had perished on the property due to the Hat Man's persistence. The legend of the Hat Man was just that, a legend, until the year 2008, when archaeologists would visit the property. What they discovered not only confirmed that the legend was true, but that what took place was even more horrifying than what they could have even possibly imagined. This man was the real-life Shrek. In the 1890s, in the quiet town of Sunny City, Florida, Meyer Michaels was an enigmatic figure, known for his intimidating demeanor. Despite selling onions at a stand, his meager earnings barely sustained him. One fateful night in 1894, 3 men plundered his home, leaving him penniless and leading to his eviction. Desperate for a fresh start, Meyer joined a traveling circus, captivated by a poster that promised adventure and pay. As the circus strongman, he lifted heavy objects on stage, gaining fame as he journeyed across the globe. Almost 2 decades later, weary of the circus life and feeling underpaid, Meyer decided to leave. In 1912, he found new employment as a boiler room worker on the luxurious Titanic, a job he cherished, expressing a desire to continue indefinitely. Tragically, on April 14, 1912, the Titanic struck an iceberg and sank. Meyer Michaels became one of the ill-fated victims. It has been rumored that Meyer actually saved many lives by breaking a jammed door in the boiler room before the tragic sinking. When this lady broke out of prison, all hell broke loose. In 1995, former Miss America Ima Hogg would be incarcerated for her unspeakable crime she committed. Ima would be placed in a maximum security prison after being given a life sentence in Arkansas. 1 year later, in 1996, the alarms in the prison would go off, and all prisoners would be forced back into their cell. All this commotion was taking place during the prisoners' 1 hour of daily sunlight in the prison's courtyard, where they could participate in any activity of their choosing. All the prisoners would return to their cell besides one, and that one being Ima Hogg. An Amber Alert would be issued statewide because she was labeled as a severe threat to society. After a statewide manhunt that took place over the course of 3 weeks, she was nowhere to be found. When in late 1996, a newly married couple would purchase a home in northern Iowa. The home was a bit of a fixer-upper, but they were excited to be new homeowners and were willing to put in the work. But there was one major issue: the house had a chronic, horrible smell, and no matter what they did, the smell would not go away. One day, the smell was so bad they decided to locate where it was coming from. That was when the couple decided to look up inside their chimney in the living room. It was at that moment they discovered what the awful smell was, and soon after the police would be called to the home. This lady was pure evil. During the early 1970s in Blackwater, Louisiana, there was a lady named Barbara Q who owned a bed and breakfast 15 miles off the nearest highway exit. She would keep fairly busy, typically having a few guests over every night, and was loved by everyone. She was also known for her famous beef stew that she would serve every morning. In September of 1972, a man named Ray Zenz was traveling for work and ended up stopping at Barbara's bed and breakfast for the night. When he checked in, Barbara asked him, "Does anybody know that you are here?" And Ray would reply saying no. That night while he was sleeping, he randomly awoke and saw the silhouette of Barbara at the end of his bed, and she was softly singing an old lullaby. But as soon as he turned on the lamp next to him, she lunged at him, but he escaped her grasp and ran out the room. He yelled and woke up everybody else, and then called the police. When they arrived, they questioned Barbara and she strangely said, normally they don't fight back. Concerned about this, they fully investigated the property and found something horrific. Her so-called famous beef stew was in fact not beef. These identical twin brothers were pure evil. During the 1950s in the hills of Kentucky, there were two brothers named Gumbo and Darby who were identical twin brothers. They lived on a giant ran-down property with their mother named Little Bertha. Over the years, the brothers were nothing but trouble in the community and were disliked by everyone and would spend time in and out of jail. But one day in 1956, their mother Bertha was not feeling well, so they contacted a local doctor named Russell Sprout to come in and help. But just after a few minutes of being there, Bertha unfortunately passed from her illness. When the brothers found out, they became very upset, and after a few moments of grieving they stopped and looked at Russell and said, "You hurt Mama." Russell tried explaining to them that she was in very poor health and there was nothing he could have done. But they kept saying, "You hurt Mama." But this time, they were walking towards Russell and were very angry. Russell attempted to run away but was grabbed and then taken down to the basement cellar. To Russell's surprise, there were already people down there, and it was other towns' people who went missing in the previous months. After a few days in the basement, the brothers eventually came down and asked for a volunteer to help move their mother out of the house and into the backyard. Seeing this as a chance to escape, Russell agreed to help. When he got to the top of the stairs, he made a run for it away from the brothers and made it to the front door, but quickly realized it was nailed shut. Moments later, he heard the brothers' voices right behind him say in unison, "You're about to meet Mama again." This was the most evil lady that ever lived. During the early 1900s in East New Jersey, a fortune teller lady named Luna Tick had a shop at the outlet mall. Most people avoided her shop because of how strange she was. But when they did enter, she would read their palms and give them a date when their life would end. The creepy part about this was that she was always correct and started to gain local fame. But when a skeptical off-duty officer named Pepe Roney went in for a reading, he was told that today would be his last. He quickly insulted Luna, saying that she was a fraud and that he would be right back here tomorrow to prove it. Pepe decided to stay the night in at his home just in case, because he knew her track record of being correct. After dozing off around 10 p.m., he would wake up randomly and would become face-to-face with Luna, and she would creepily say, "Sorry, did I wake you?" A scuffle between them would happen, and Pepe was able to escape her grasp, but she continued chasing him down the hallway, yelling, "I am just fulfilling your destiny." She was able to catch up to him, and she tackled him down the stairs. When he awoke, Luna was still unconscious on the ground, so he decided to handcuff her to a railing and went out to get help. But when they returned, she was gone. After everyone left, Pepe decided to go lay down and relax. But out of nowhere, he heard a whisper say, "Let's try this again." This was the real-life Stewie Griffin. In the small town of Moon City, Rhode Island, October 10, 1954, marked the birth of a baby named Brock Lee. For the first few months, life was ordinary, until an inexplicable man's voice echoed through their house when Brock turned 6 months old. Convinced of a haunting, Pete and Lori sought help from local paranormal investigators, but their efforts yielded nothing. Desperate, they relocated to a new home, but the mysterious voice persisted. During Brock's first birthday party, the family watched a police chase on the news. They chuckled at the striking resemblance between the pursued car and their own. To their disbelief, the chase unfolded into their neighborhood, and their baby son Brock would exit the vehicle and run through the front door. He would then bark orders in a manly voice to lock all the doors and windows. As the police entered the home and arrested him, they discovered the extraordinary truth. Brock, the 1-year-old, possessed the intellect of a genius and a fully developed brain. The voice that haunted them for the past year was, in fact, their son's. This was the real-life Truman Show. During the 1950s, a man named Chad Powers was a TV producer who had his own show called Sunnyville, where he played a fictional mayor in a fake town. The whole town was made up of 30,000 actors with only 5 residents, not knowing it was fake, and that they were secretly being filmed on a TV show. The creepy part about the show was that all 5 contestants were put on the show unknowingly. They were all put into medically induced comas and flown out to Antarctica, where the show was being filmed in a 250-square-mile metal dome. Everything inside the town was fake or imported from other parts of the world. Chad controlled everything in the town, from the people to even the weather. But by the third season of the show, Chad started causing trouble by creating artificial natural disasters in the town for entertainment purposes, which led to the passing of over 200 actors. At this point, all the actors wanted to leave but couldn't, because they were stuck in a dome. The show also had no purpose anymore, because the 5 contestants were eventually told everything was fake by the actors. Chad was livid about this, and went on the town's news channel and told everyone that they all signed contracts and couldn't leave. This caused a revolt, and everyone went searching for Chad. A fellow producer named Ken Dahl, who was not happy with what Chad was doing, granted access to the rooftop of the dome where Chad was hiding, and the revolting actors were able to find Chad. When they confronted him, he begged, saying, "It's just showbiz, my friends." Not happy with that response, the actors grabbed Chad and threw him off the top of the dome, and he was never seen again. Over the next few weeks, the town was fully evacuated and then demolished. What this woman did still leaves locals speechless 65 years later. In the small town of Goobersville, Indiana, in the year 1957, a chilling incident unfolded. Karen Noodleman, a 16-year-old girl with a haunting past, resided in an insane asylum. Known for causing the tragic loss of her family members, she was deemed dangerous after a lobotomy gone wrong when she was just 13. One eerie night, during the routine morning roll count, Karen was nowhere to be found in her cell. Panic ensued as the asylum doctors discovered a hidden hole behind her Marilyn Monroe poster. The entire facility went on high alert, and the police were immediately notified. Concern for the safety of Karen's remaining family members grew, particularly her younger brother, who was living with their grandparents. Multiple attempts to reach out to her grandparents went unanswered, deepening the sense of unease among the asylum staff and law enforcement. With a sense of urgency, the authorities rushed to Karen's grandparents' home. They pounded on the front door, yelling, "Police!" Uncertain of what they would find inside, someone finally opened the door, but it wasn't who they expected. This man caused a whole state to go into lockdown. In the year 2003, a man named Ben Doberman stood trial for the disappearances of over 52 people in Washington state from the years 1974 to 2002. Ben was described as over 7 feet tall but weighed only 140 pounds. He would often be spotted walking on the side of the highway in the middle of the night, dressed in a suit. Many kind-hearted individuals would pull over and offer him a ride, unknowingly falling victim to his sinister intentions. However, in 2002, a man driving a truck accidentally hit the 7-foot-tall man and drove away without realizing it. The following morning, police arrested Ben Doberman after he sought medical attention at the hospital for his injuries. Due to prior suspicions and evidence linking him to the disappearances, he was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. However, in 2009, during the morning roll call, prison guards realized that Ben was nowhere to be found in his cell or within the prison premises, until they looked behind his Scooby-Doo poster in his cell. The warden of the prison would quickly call the governor of Washington, ordering a state lockdown.